story to share with us later on. All right. So from Drunken Prawns, what happened after that? Because you then had another 10-minute play, which was picked up by.
Because I won for Drunken Prawns, so funny, full circle. My prize was to go back to Access Theatre for a festival of 10-minute plays. Okay, so I started there and then I went back there. And they were so amazed to see me. You're back. So what I did was I packed a few of my 10-minute plays, and I went for the 10-minute play festival because you never know, right? Sometimes people will pick up your pieces. Then I met the artistic director there, John Jory, and then I met the script director, Mr. Dixon, okay? And he told me, so he was very busy, but he saw that I had a stack of 10-minute plays. And he says, just toss one into the pile. If you make it, it'll be excellent, right? But I knew that the pile was 2,000 to 3,000 entries a year. And I thought, oh no, I don't think so. And then it was an American competition too. And I was the first outsider that was invited to throw my piece in the pile. And then John Jory made a joke, I remember. He said, this year we go international, we got one Singaporean in our list. So, so I threw it in, and then I just forgot all about it until one day I got a call from America, and he says, hey, Desmond, you made the top 50. I said, oh my God, top 50, 3,000, I was so excited over it. Then every 2 weeks they would call me up, oh, you've gone down to top 30 and top 20, and they're only going to choose 6. So I made to the top 6, and it's inside there in the program. So that was one of my proudest achievements because I never really knew if I was good enough outside my country, right? So I tested it, and obviously they liked it enough. So obviously.
Tell us about Elizabeth by Night.
It was a simple piece. It was a piece about a man and a woman meeting under a street lamp. Okay, she had disappeared for a few years, and she had come back more beautiful than ever, an actress now. And he recognizes her, and he goes like, Elizabeth, oh my God, I didn't know it was you. I heard you became an actress, but oh my God, you look amazing, right? And then as they talk, you realize that they had been together before, right? And that he had cruelly dumped her, and she had gone away hurt, and now she's back.
More beautiful than ever.
More beautiful than ever, and then he thinks that, oh, you come back for me, you must have missed me, and blah blah blah, and later on, she lures him into an embrace, right? And they kiss, and she bites him, and then he finds out later that she had gone away. She met the love of her life, right? But she was lost. She had been seeing so many men because she didn't know what happened to her. Why did he suddenly walk away and dump her and everything? She was looking for him in all the men that she met, right? And then she met someone who loved her very much, but she passed AIDS onto him, and he died before her. And she came back to find out why did he leave her, and in that conversation, he revealed that she was his first one, and he did not know if she was the best one, so he had to go and try other people, and that's why he walked away. And that's a very shallow, stupid reason that he left her. And so she attacked him. It was a story of revenge and sadness and desperation. And I used the whole image of carnival animals, werewolves, carnivals, and all that as part of the backdrop. Because it was dark, it was shadowy, and you could play with those elements. And they liked it because it was just painful, I guess. Yeah.
So when you mentioned animals, would you say that was a kind of like a genesis for corporate animals?
That was different. Corporate animals, devised by Eka Chai, myself, and Ken Lau. 3 of us were working as corporate animals at that time. We were all in the corporate world. And we would meet periodically to steal time out to plan projects in theatre. And we would hate our corporate lives, and we would bitch about it when we get together. And so one day we always talk about this horrible corporate world. Okay, let's just write something, right? So we devised it, right? And
how come a musical?
I think we wanted to include Ken, was the music guy, 1. 2, we had watched other musicals, and we thought we're inspired by them, okay? Admittedly, it's not the best musical ever, but we were proud of it because it was the first one we devised together. It was us learning together how to put the pieces together to a musical, instrumental to eventually them, Eka Chai and Ken coming up with Zhang and Ing and many other, you know. So it was a good experiment. I realized that I quite liked it, but you know, maybe it wasn't my main, sort of like a, but it was fun. It was fun to do that,
And also it marked this, should we say, the start of your action theatre years?
Yeah, I think that was the first real production that we did on a big scale, and you know, Drunken Prawns was the first.
Okay, yes.
Because after that, Akasha kept having those 10-minute plays, and I would contribute, whether it's a competition or not. I would just give 10-minute plays. To me, it was great practice, right? But to him, it was good content because he was trying to get action theatre to be the center where local writing would happen. So eventually, he would offer me the role to hold a lot of our writing courses here. So basically,
And actually, when you talk about here, we're actually talking about
physical
here,
space
aren't
here.
we? Yeah. For the younger ones in the audience, you know, before Center 42, this was actually the home of action theatre, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where Drunken Prawns was.
Autumn Tomyam, a lot of Ovidia's plays were done. The backyard, all our readings were in the backyard. It was really home for us for about a decade. You know, Eleanor's plays, Ovidia's plays. Tan Hao was more theatre works, but I think Ovidia was quite largely here.
You know, action theatre years, as it were, but at the same time, it didn't stop you from working with other people.
I think one thing I really loved about working with action theatre was it was never exclusive, because I was free to work with anyone else. I worked with SRT, Singapore Carol. I worked with Wild Rice, you know, Jack and Bean Sprout. I worked with a lot of different theatres, and
wow.
I was never asked, like, what did you do with them? Right? I mean, we were all mature enough to know that it's the experience, it's the growth, you know, that, you know, and I'll come back and write you a better play. I mean, you know, so we never had that question,
And so this would have been writing with WOW, for example, right?
I also did one arts festival closer with Lim Xiao Chong. Funny, this one was at a time when Hong Kong was going back to China, and a lot of Hong Kong millionaires were coming to Singapore, and we had our first wave of xenophobia then. You know, Singaporeans were hating the foreigners, the loud Hong Kongers who were so brand conscious, and I wrote a story about how a murder happened, and a Hong Kong family was implicated to the murder, and what all local citizens would say about them. And Tan Keng Hua acted in it, and Lim Xiao Chong directed it. We had a lot of fun with that. So funny that, you know, almost 20 years later, we still have that xenophobia sometimes in our midst.
You also wrote something called Shrimps in Space.
This one was a Hossein Leong project. Okay, Heng Lon directed it. Okay, if you can believe it. I was actually behind here. Hossein was doing something with action theatre, right? And we were waiting for our turn. And Hossein was telling me stories about his childhood. And he said he was in ACS and playing rugby, and I just burst out laughing, and he looked very insulted. And he says, yeah, rugby, I promise you I was in rugby. Then I said, then he said, yeah, you imagine me, right, running with the ball and screaming because all these big guys would, like, you know, threaten to jump on me. Then I talked to him about his childhood, as I realized that, oh my God, I have the elements of the ultimate underdog story here. You know, and I wrote it, and I showed it to him. I said, look, then I showed it, and he liked it. He said, oh my God, you know, my life, how wonderful. No, but it wasn't his life. It was about the greatest underdog story ever, and a skinny, scrawny guy whose best friend was the top athlete in his school, and how he looked up to this guy, and how he wished he was that guy, and how their roles changed as they went through life and got knocked about and everything, you know. So it unfortunately, we launched this at the wrong timing, and this taught me a lesson in marketing. It was at the exam period where all the pre-U's and secondary schools had exams, and very few young people got to see. I thought a lot of young people were really benefited from watching this, but very few people did. The intended target audience, right? So that was about way that Hossein has always been saying, let's bring it back. And I said, I don't know whether time has passed or, but it may come back, you know. But
actually, tell us a little bit more about the story, because
his name is Heavy, right? The skinny guy Heavy, because that's his nickname, meaning dried prawn, right? This tiny dried shrimp, all right? And his best friend is King Kong, and King Kong always won the sports meets, always got the girl. Heavy grew up to be a school teacher, but King Kong became a businessman. King Kong drove the luxury cars, had a yacht, had the fancy lifestyles, jetting around, had beautiful dance hostesses to go out with him and everything, and led the kind of life that a rich businessman would do. And he slept with many, many women. And Hebi, because he was such an underdog, he came from a poor family and everything, he could understand the difficult classes in his school. He handled problem students, and he was good at that. He was good at that, so good that the school dumped all the difficult kids with him. And he had a particularly difficult one at that point in the story, in the last point of the story, and he had his car scratched, and he had mysterious phone calls at night, and he was going, that boy is trying to drive me crazy, right? And then he traced the call because he got so fed up, and he found that it came from a hospital, and from a communicable diseases ward, and he went to there, and he found out that, it came from King Kong. And King Kong had actually contracted AIDS in his wild lifestyle that he had. He went into the room, he got a shock because King Kong was now skinnier than him, smaller than him. And he was so sad, but he was so angry. Because King Kong had been trying to call him, but hung up every time he called. And he was like, why did you let me know? Why did you let me know at the beginning? I would have been here from the start, you were my hero, I would have done everything for you. And then King Kong turned around and said, no, my whole life you were my hero. You were the one that knew where you were going. You were the one that knew how to be useful. You were the one that knew all these things, and I didn't. I was lost. I was just screwing around, getting lost. And so you realize it's an interesting thing to see, the reversal. I wanted to see things from a different perspective, and which is what a lot of my later plays were about, seeing something from a very different perspective that we would commonly see, yeah.
So what perspective were you going for when you wrote Swimming Instructor?
Okay. It's funny because I wrote this somewhere in my late 30s, I think. And this is my most produced play ever, to my shock, because it's such a silly, on the surface, frothy piece, okay? Because, I was joking with Eka Chai. I said, what if I write you a play where 80% of the time they are all wearing 20% clothing only? And they're very beautiful and very sexy, and everyone will come and watch them. And then he laughed. He said, if you write such a play, I will market it for you. And I said, no, but there'll be a good story, it's me. There'll be a good story, all right? There'll be a good story inside. So I wrote the play, and true enough, he marketed it for me. And it went very well, right? They had 3 versions in Singapore, right? And with good actors, Emma was in it, okay, and then Jamie Yeoh was in it.
Emma was the first.
The first one,
yes.
yeah.
And then followed by
Stephen Lim was in it too, yeah.
Okay.
Ik Shen, the TV actor Ik Shen, we had really good actors for those, right? So, what we did, we learned a very interesting strategy. You come up with something spicy, but you give people a really good storyline, and they get surprised because they expected to see, right, very, very lucid kind of scenes, and they got some of it, but you know what? They got a slice of the meaning of life in it, and they would be surprised by that because they didn't expect it, right? So we found a very nice strategy where we made plays that seemed sexy, but actually had a lot of heart. So that was a nice experiment. But there was also the modern love triangle: girl and guy falls in love for the same guy, who is sexually ambiguous. So it was also the modern love story, right? And then they spend the whole play trying to figure out whether he's this way or that way, right? And then the guy is drifting towards death somehow. So so there were darker shades in it too, and we had different versions. There was a happy ending and a sad ending. So we had fun playing with those as well. Yeah.
And was it different being staged in Singapore compared to in Malaysia?
Yeah, in Malaysia it had two different runs also. Quite different because the one in Malaysia was quite many years later already, right? A different young audience had come up, a different different music background, everything. But you realize that the universal issues were still there. Okay, wondering if someone loved you, someone didn't love you, or what. Would you give yourself to someone upon meeting them, and things like that. So I felt that maybe there was something, maybe the simple stuff was quite universal, so maybe that's why it worked, yeah.
Love.
Yeah, oh, love, yeah, that comes out in my latest piece, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so from Swimming Instructor, where you were talking about these issues, then came Autumn Tomyam,
Yeah.
right?
It came from the same thing about looking at things from a different angle again. How it started was, I was in my corporate phase at that time doing project in Pattaya. We were building an exhibition pavilion where the king was going to visit, the actual king himself, right? So a lot of hard work involved, but at night we went out drinking because the work was so heavy, okay? Really, it was really terrible. But anyway, we went drinking. When I walked past the bar area in Pattaya, I was very disturbed because I could see very old Caucasian men with young teenage girls, if it was a straight bar, boys, if it was a gay bar, sitting on their laps. I was going like, damn it, exploitation, right? I mean, I felt really icky about it. Went back to my hotel room, thought about it, and I thought, but as a writer, as an artist, I cannot just judge, I tried to be open-minded. Then I said, no, I don't know enough to even think one way or another. So the next night I went to one of the gay bars, and I bought 4 guys a drink. I said, I'll give you all a tip at the end of the evening. Tell me your stories. And then they were shocked. Yeah, you don't want orgy, ah? No. I just want stories, all right? And they were really puzzled. It took them a while to understand.
No play acting required.
No. It took them a while to understand what I really wanted. I said, where do you come from? Why are you here? And each one of them gave different stories. It was really interesting because one was there and said, because easy money, because all these old ones, very easy, You tell them you're at university, they pay you a lot, and one was out to rip off, and one was looking really for love. My friend fell in love. He found a really nice guy. I hope I'm lucky also. And each one had a different approach to the whole thing. So by the end of the evening, when I left and tipped them and went home alone, I got a very different view of it. I got a different view. And I wanted the audience to experience that in a play. Because if you go through it and then you understand it, just experiencing and understand you, instead of being lectured to, you will come to your own understanding of situations. And I'm glad it worked because many people felt that way when they went in. Because when you see that 18-year-old boy on the back of a hairy old ang moh, you will immediately feel it first. Because the boy is in tight white shorts and the man is very, very old, right? You will, in your guts, feel it. And then you work your way through your emotions and then you get to understand that maybe the old man is kind. Maybe the young boy needs help. Maybe, there's so many maybes and we judged before we knew the maybe. So maybe it's a good story, So that's what we did. I think it worked, so that's nice. Yeah.
So what was the story you were trying to tell in Autumn Tomyam?
Old man has been, 57-year-old man, ex-diplomat, has been divorced with his wife already for about 10 years. The beginning was very bitter, she was very angry, and his wife is Asian, he's Caucasian, right? It was bitter at the beginning, but she came round to accepting the divorce in the end, and they became the best of exes, okay? Always teasing each other when they're going to start dating again, and they could even celebrate each other's anniversary. Now that they're not married, they still have an anniversary, but it's an anniversary, all right? And they buy each other presents and all that. She's fine, and she's ready that one day he's going to date again. He's ready that she's going to date again. Except that he goes to Thailand, goes for a massage, and falls in love with an 18-year-old massage boy. And then he brings him back. He attempts to bring him back, and then all the fireworks hit because everybody looks at them and judges them. And she, although she's helping with refugees and all that, she can't help but judge it too because deep down inside she hasn't let go yet. And because love is complex, I wanted to show that. You can say you're divorced, you can say you're friends, but love is really complex. Because deep down it gets you at a cellular level. You see someone, your pace quickens, your anger goes up, things still happen when you see your ex. It happens, whether you want it or not. And I captured that in the play, so I think, it's real. So I think
and it won a whole string of awards.
Well, those were all, we had a wonderful cast, wonderful director. I'm just very, very sad that Ekachai didn't win the director's one. But we already won quite a few prizes, so it would have been greedy if he had won it too. So, but I felt he should have won that. Okay. Given up one of the awards.
Okay. And from this, we had your foray into screenplays.
After that, Choy had gone back to Thailand to do some projects. And he was flying back and forth. He was managing action theatre and flying back. And then one day he came and he called me up and he said, "Oh, have you heard of this boxer who wears lipstick and became a woman?" And I wasn't extremely interested at first because I had my own issues with flaming drag queens, okay? And I thought she was a drag queen, that's all. And he said, "I've talked to her, she's not that, Actually, she's not that." Then I said, "Okay, but doesn't thrill me." Then he says, "You come, you find out the story. If you can't get anything out of it, then don't." I also told her, if I can't find anything meaningful to say about your life, I also won't do it. Okay. And that's the only reason why she said yes to him and she said no to a lot of people. A lot of people went to her promising her to make her story into a movie, promising her a lot of things. Actually, I was the first one to tell her that, "Look, I'm just going to find out about your life. I'll get under your skin and know your life. And if I find something meaningful to tell the public, then I will do it. If I don't find anything meaningful, then I don't want to do it." And she thought about it and she says, "Yeah, okay." So I went on that basis too, that if there was nothing for me, I wouldn't do it. Okay. And then I met her and she's a lovely person. She's demure, soft-spoken, very good-hearted, supporting her parents, her brother, her sister-in-law who were drug addicts and in jail. She was like doing a lot of things that I couldn't imagine one person doing, right?
And we have a clip, right, which tells us
a little bit
about that.
So I guess it's the same journey I took with Autumn Tomyam, where you look at things from the outside and you make certain judgments, and then you follow a person's life story, and you find those judgments a bit harder to make. It's an interesting journey.
What was it like writing a screenplay as opposed to a play?
It's hard because I was writing in English and I had a translator to interview. I asked the questions in English, they translate in Thai, then translate back to English and I write it. And then I would write the script in English, and Choy would spend 10 hours a day with me, end on end, to just write with me, because I can only approach it through a Singaporean mindset. And there were ways of thinking a Thai would think that wouldn't hold a conversation that way, But because of that, I had a tremendous appreciation for culture change, When you're working in a different culture, you really understand it. And then not only that, I had studied Buddhism in philosophy class in NUS, and I never understood, Like for example, the Thai culture, people always say, "Oh, Thailand is the land of freedom, you can be lady boy, you can be all that, it's fine." It's not fine. It is because they're Buddhists. They believe that in the transmigration of souls and rebirth, if you've done something which your karma needs to be paid back for in the previous life, part of your karma is you're born into a different body and you suffer in this life. So if you see someone suffering because they're born in a different sexuality, as a Buddhist, you don't make life more difficult for that person. You try to lighten their load by not being judgmental, by not being awful to them. And that's what the Thais are doing, right? It's not like they want their children to do whatever they want. Actually they're quite conservative as a society. But because they're ruled by the Buddhist philosophy, there's a certain way of living that allows for the fact to lighten one's burden, someone else's burden. Yeah. So that was very beautiful to learn, actually. Yeah.
And from something like this to a pantomime.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
what was that about?
Okay, life's funny journeys. So yeah, that was so meaningful, so deep in it.